Warning: the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of unprotected talk, borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
Blue Monday, how are you, Blue Monday?
Got to work like a
we have Blue Monday, or you can't find it?
Here come Tuesday, oh, Tuesday. I'm so tired, got no time.
Let's stop the opening. I see that socialism is on the rise here in America, which is amazing to me, given that Bernie Sanders is a classic 1930s New York Lower East Side communist on a soapbox. And yet he seems to be stirring up a little attention here and there. I mean, he got 400 people in Nebraska, and they said he's getting great crowds. If I gave a speech, I can get 30,000 people, and the New York Times would ignore the crowds the same way they're ignoring my novel. But forget about me for a minute. I want to talk about socialism. Many of you think you're a socialist, or you want to be socialist, because you think it's fair. And so we're going to have a little discussion today on the Savage Nation on what is socialism, where has it actually worked, what has actually happened when socialism was enacted in a country. I'll give you the best example I know of. You can go 70 miles south of Miami. You'll see socialism in action. 40 years of a prison camp run by the Castro gangster regime. The people live like slaves. The two brothers and their cronies live like kings. There's socialism. And yet you see the kids coming out of the colleges with their brains washed, believing in socialism. They don't even know what it means. But they think it's a good thing, where everybody will be equal and everybody will be fair. Now, we've had 6 or 7 years of the phony in the White House pushing this lie while living, I would say, a richer life than any president in American history. Classic socialism, by the way, which is feed the people the garbage they want to hear and then live high on the hog. So you have to ask yourself, why is socialism suddenly on the rise in America? Why are people interested in this? Left-wing politicians are in retreat across the entire Western world except in the United States. Did you know that? They're in retreat in France, Germany, Italy, England. They've gotten defeated in all of these nations. The left-wingers have been thrown out of office in most of the Western world. But in the United States, there seems to be an infatuation with socialism, as exemplified by this Lower East Side street agitator, Bernie Sanders, who seems to be running at 15% in the Democratic polls. He's riding higher than any U.S. socialist since Eugene Debs ran for the White House 100 years ago. Now, it's unlikely he'll unseat Hillary Clinton. She's got too much money. But he is dragging her to the left. There is another left-winger on the rise, Martin O'Malley, who I call the American Putin. I call Martin O'Malley the American Putin for a number of reasons, and I don't have to go into the details. Let's listen to Martin O'Malley in clip 2.
We need to prosecute cheats. We need to reinstate Glass-Steagall. And if a bank is too big to fail without wrecking our nation's economy, then we need to break it up before it breaks us again.
Well, I never heard O'Malley till I listened to the sound clips. His voice is too tinny to attract any attention. But nevertheless, he says, let's reinstate Glass-Steagall. I actually agree with that. It's one of the principles in my book, Trickle Up Poverty, from a couple of years ago. And many of you don't know what Glass-Steagall is. This act, instituted in 1933, required the separation of commercial and investment banks. It's very simple. It required commercial and investment banks to be separated. It was repealed in 1999 by Bill Clinton's Treasury Secretary. I think his name was Rubin. And it was one of the key factors leading to the breakdown of the residential mortgage investment sector. I totally agree it needs to be reinstated. We also need to reinstate the Wall Street uptick rule, because we have out-of-control speculation right now that is unhealthy and very dangerous and should lead to another collapse. But let's not get too specific. Let's listen to Bernie Sanders in clip 32, and you listen to the demagogue himself.
When people are prepared to fight back, there is nothing that cannot
be accomplished. We can live in a country where every person has health care is a right, not a privilege. We can live in a country where every person, no matter their race, their religion, their disability, or their sexual orientation, realizes the full promise of equality that is our birthright as Americans. That is the nation.
You stink like a rotten corned beef sandwich. Shut him up. He smells like an old corned beef sandwich fell out of a truck off Katz's back truck. Are you kidding me? Let me tell you something, old Bernie, and you know it better than anybody. We've heard this equality crap before, and I'll tell you the truth, Bernie. I wrote a little line about 30 years ago when I was shafted by affirmative action. You know what it was entitled, Bernie? I wrote one simple line: without quality, we cannot have equality. Don't fool yourself. Not everybody is equal. Oh, we may be born equal, but are we? Are we really born equal? Are you telling me I could be a linebacker? Can you tell me the average linebacker can be a talk show host? Of course not, Bernie. We're snowflakes, Bernie. But socialism would like us all turned into slush. How's that for a line? So let's get past the opening of why is socialism popular in America now. I will invite you to call me at 855-407-282 and talk about this. Why is socialism suddenly gaining traction in America right now? Not only have America's moral views moved to the left over the last number of years, but America's political views are moving to the left over the last couple of years. And you have to go back to reality to understand that socialism has never worked. Wherever it has been tried, it has never worked. Again, I point to Cuba, look to the ex-Soviet Union, ask your Russian neighbor how life was like in the United Socialist States, United Soviet Republic, USSR. How did that work out for all of the socialists in all of the republics that were under the banner of those in the Kremlin? Well, they lived very poorly while those in government lived very richly, very much like today. Government agents live very, very well in this country and abuse the taxpayer as often as they could because a fish rots from the head down. As you all know, Obama has rotted the fish from the head down. But what is socialism? What actually is socialism is the question. Well, socialism means that the government takes over the direct control and management of the industries and social services by the workers. What does that mean? Are you telling me that the government is going to take over farming? Would the government taking over farms produce more and better crops? Because I'm starting with something obvious. You know and I know that that was tried in the Soviet Union in the 1930s, where they started to debase the Soviet farmers, the Russian farmers. They called them kulaks, very much like Obama has started to come up with a phrase called white privilege in order to attack white people. The universities have been putting out this racist garbage for a few years now. And so they started by demonizing the farmers in the Soviet Union, calling them kulaks, meaning profiteers in essence. And what happened soon thereafter was the people started to say, yeah, those damn farmers, they're making too much money. Now, remember, the Soviet Union was the breadbasket of the entire region for a long period of time. They were producing wheat. They were self-sufficient. They were able to feed themselves and export many products, including wheat, around the world. Once the government took over the farms, the government, in its typical fashion of mismanagement, mismanaged the farms. Crop production fell, food production fell, food distribution fell. There was mass starvation and 30 million people died. This is what happens whenever a government takes over a private industry. It cannot do it better. It does it worse. Do you understand this? Do you understand how this works? Now, many of the bums listening to this show don't work for a living, but they hate those of us who do work for a living. They're green with envy. They're green with envy because they think that we stole it from them. They think that they're on the bottom because we took it from them. They think that we on the top took it from them. Where did they get this foolish idea from? From Barack Obama and the media and the universities. The fact of the matter is, there are always winners and losers in every country, in every society, in every tribe, in every village. I've lived in primitive villages. And in the smallest villages that I've lived in the Fiji Islands, I've seen those who were chiefs. I've seen those who were princes and princesses in the familial line. And I've seen those at the very bottom. There's no equality on this earth, whether it be in the animal kingdom or in the human kingdom. There never has been, and there never will be equality. Does this mean that we should let those on the bottom starve to death? Can you tell me of anyone who is starving to death in America? We have an obesity epidemic amongst the poor in this country because they're stuffing their faces with food around the clock. Instead of working, they're stuffing. No, we should take care of the poor. We should take care of the weak. We should take care of the sick. However, we shouldn't take care of the world's poor, the world's sick, and the world's weak. We can't hardly take care of our own domestic variety of parasite. So let's be clear. When I was a child and I would drive around in my father's car on the way to work, I would look at everything and observe as a smart child does, whatever the race or religion of a child will observe. And I used to hate working. I hated going to work. I resented it like you can't believe. I didn't like working. I wanted to stay home and play with my friends. My father was an immigrant, and he wanted to teach me the work ethic. So he made me go to work on the weekends, and we drive in his old cars. Well, they were a couple of years old, over the Kosciuszko Bridge from Queens at that time, into Manhattan to his store on the Lower East Side on Ludlow Street. And I would observe human life as I went by the tenements, the old apartments in the Williamsburg area, Greenpoint, which are now you pay $1 million for a junky apartment. But nevertheless, I would observe and I would say, wouldn't it be nice, I would imagine, if there was no money in the world? This is a child's view now. This is how socialists think. This is how college professors think. Wouldn't it be nice if there was no means of trade called money? And I said, what if the man went to work every day and my father just gave away his merchandise to people and exchanged it, I thought, let's say for food or for gasoline or for a car. I thought that would be nice. Nobody would have to work too hard. Everybody would just exchange goods. But then I said, wait a minute. What happens, I thought, if some guys don't want to work as hard as the other guy? Well, what if some guys don't want to work at all? And then I realized that I was not a socialist. Unfortunately, Bernie Sanders never had that moment. He never realized that there are some people who are lazy or cheats. And as a result of that, he doesn't understand the real world. So that kicks off my discussion of socialism. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
My Savage Nation is sponsored by SwissAmerica.com. It's the only company I trust to protect my wealth. Call 800-BUY-COIN.
Powerful, wealthy special interests here at home have used our government to create in our own country an economy that is leaving a majority of our people behind, an economy that has so concentrated wealth and power in the hands of the very few that it has taken opportunity out of the homes of the many.
And who do you hang around with? The thugs of Baltimore, or the ones who've taken the opportunity out of the homes of many, Mr. O'Malley? Who'd you invite to dinner recently? Who came to the O'Malley household recently? Was it the thugs of Baltimore who burned the city to the ground? Or was it the powerful that he hates so much? What a bunch of garbage. All of these politicians are playing the demagogue act right now because it's worked for the con man in the White House so well. They figure, I may as well get on in the act. So now they're espousing naked socialism, which has been tried in many, many places. And I don't know where it's worked. Maybe someone can enlighten me. I've heard so much about socialism my entire life, and here's something I've also noticed amongst the artists and bohemians who are all socialists at heart as they sit around in their fat behinds drinking a glass of wine in a cafe, let's say in San Francisco somewhere, instead of working during the day. They sit and talk about they extol the benefits of socialism and what a great nation it would be if it were a socialist nation, and how they're anti-capitalist. But at the hint of a dollar, at the smell of a buck, at the hint of a contract, at the smell of a grant, they will jump out of that cafe chair so fast that the entire table goes over, knocking over the bottles and glasses themselves. They're not capitalists at all until they smell a dollar. Then get out of their way as fast as you can because you're liable to be trampled. That's the truth about socialists and socialism in a nutshell. That's Socialism 101 from a man who knows the truth, Michael Savage. So now we have demagogues like this whatever his name is, Bernie Sanders. Now all of a sudden,